Welcome to Lykken on Lending, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of the mortgage industry. Your host, David Lykken, bringing you the latest insights, trends, and updates from the world of mortgages. Whether you're a seasoned industry veteran or just getting started, this show is your go-to source for all things mortgage. Let's get started. This is Lykken on Lending. Now your host, David Lykken.
To have leaders in the industry join us on the podcast today, we have Amy Gross with us. She is Director of Development Platform at ICE Mortgage Technologies, and we're real honored to have her here talking about what is going on there at ICE. There's so much, a lot of concerns about going on about the transition in a particular area, and that Amy's responsible for. Amy, good to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, David. Good to see you again.
You guys have a huge market share in the mortgage industry, and a lot of people were concerned about some of the changes, but they're going much better. And I'm really excited that you took the time to join us today and tell us what is going on. How is the switch going?
Absolutely. Yeah, as you mentioned, we announced the transition last fall. And of course, whenever you announce a big change, always comes with, there's going to be some fear associated with that. Oh my gosh, yeah. What does the world look like after I do this? And I'm pleased to say that actually the change is going quite well. Even though this has only been a few months, we're already seeing the changes in the numbers. We had one of our, as we were talking earlier, one of our top 10 lenders. They went from being number 3 in terms of the overall SDK usage on the platform down to number 25, like almost within the last month, just making a couple of changes, transitioning some of their legacy integrations from their SDK based over to our Encompass Partner Connect platform. And also they've been doing some switching in terms of their integrations with their point of sale platform. So it's fantastic to see. And we're seeing that more and more across the board, because what we've done is we've really started to get people to looking at their processes, looking at their plugin, and seeing, hey, you know what, can I reimagine this? Can I even we've had several lenders just make small changes, and all of a sudden the integrations are much more efficient. We've seen some that have decreased their usage by 50%, some 25%, but we're seeing big changes along the way. Yeah, so it's been really good. Our partners are working with us. We're also seeing results from that as well. So yeah, really good results.
Yeah, one of the things you just talked about was the opportunity to review processes. Mm-hmm. Does this give them more flexibility in the processes?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we talk about a lot, and we're doing a session at our upcoming experience, put in a plug for that, and we've done a webinar series on it as well, is we've got a lot of opportunities in what the modern Encompass and the modern Encompass platform has. We've done a huge amount of investment in our workflow platform and our workflow automation, so people are going in, reviewing that. We've got a lot of partners who are consulting on this as well. Hey, let's look at this as an opportunity to see, okay, how can I reimagine this process? Can I automate some of it? Can I move, getting to that promise of exception-based processing? And we're there. We're at that point, which is really exciting to see. So yeah, so there's a lot of transformation going on, not just directly taking what you had before and translating that into API. Some of that's going to happen for sure, but some of that also is saying, hey, let's look at what's there. There's been a lot of stuff that's built since you built that thing 10 years ago. And you have an opportunity now to do something that's a lot more maintainable, something that your admins can manage for you, and something that's going to transform how your shop works, which is really cool. So there's a lot of opportunity in here, and people are excited about it.
Yeah. What was the fear that you felt that that was causing for some irrational predispositions about that?
I think one of the things really right out of the gate is, oh my gosh, is this MoneyGram, right? This going
that was
to
a big one I heard.
100%, right? And one of the things that we did, Tim Bowler worked with us on the messaging, and we put out our pricing model so people could see that most customers, and I can tell you with even if the top 12 didn't change a thing, right now, like number 12 is at about $300 a month. based on their current usage. So we've seen massive changes in that area, and most of them are under $50. Some are actually under 10. So it's not
It's not the big.
It's really not, and I think.
Well, I think I can understand that there's so much anxiety right now in the industry. So I can appreciate the fact that a lot of people are fearing any change, and they can make change. We know what likes change, and we assume the worst when change comes sometimes. Some people do. And so that creates that, but it's really good to hear that it's going as well as it is. But let's talk about some of the things that you're hearing from your partners, your customers that are using this. One of the quotes you told me the other day is, "This is fun." And I go, that's
a bold statement. I know.
Yeah.
And it's really true. Like when I sat down with our partners and had that discussion, I got that feedback from pretty much all of them saying, hey, this is something we haven't had a chance to do, which is reimagine, actually go in, work with the new technologies and say, you know what, not only is this easier to work with, and by the way, think about the practical business stuff, hey, I can hire people who have this skill set out of college, and that's great because they know it's the modern tech stack and the modern integration patterns, and they're not like this bespoke SDK. But also just having the opportunity to use the brains and reimagine how you're going to solve those problems. So yeah, they're enjoying the opportunity, and they're working with our customers. Now I think that some of them, again, there was that initial concern, and then when we've gone out, we've talked to them, we've shown them a lot of the materials that we have to help, and I can give you an example from last month. We went out with our number one SDK user, sat down with them, had a great discussion about what this means and what their usage was. And again, within a couple of weeks, they were able to make some small changes to what they were doing, and they reduced their usage by almost half. And they're still continuing to do a lot of work in that area, but yeah, fantastic results. Just being able to go in and look at what you're doing and rethink it, because they never had to before. And so it's a good impetus for everybody involved to say, hey, inspection is not a bad thing, right? And it's going to drive, you're going to get benefits out of it that you don't realize. And I think that's going to translate our hope here, and our whole goal behind all of this, but aside from anything else, is to give that end user experience improved, because they're going to get better performance out of it. So at the heart of it, we're really trying to make a change for our customers and for those users' benefit.
Yeah, and I would imagine this is starting to uncover, because you're using a more modern technology, upgraded technology, it's revealing inefficiencies in what was being done. Talk about that, if you would.
Some things that were just simple things that were inefficiencies, like going in and making calls for each individual audit trail field, for example. So there was one that they were doing thousands and thousands of calls, and with one line of code change, because they were calling the wrong method, they were able to reduce by, I think that one was a very large percentage. I forget the actual percentage, but one very simple code change unwound a ton of inefficiencies. And that's translating, again, lower usage, lower potential, lowering that impact to them of their usage, less things that they've got to change. And also it's going to impact their user experience, because their integration is far less chatty now.
Yeah, and didn't you say one letter has reduced their usage factor by a factor of 10?
Yeah.
I mean,
and it was very dramatic. What that particular lender switched out some of the integrations that they were doing. So they had a prior integration with their point of sale that was all SDK based, and they went from our baseline, so it was back last fall when we set this, to December. So they went from something like 183 million calls a month to 9. So yeah, it was a dramatic drop, and it was based on, they did some really strategic thinking into what they were doing. So again, they were moving their point of sale integration, moving over to EPC. And that's another big part of what we're doing on the transition side, right? Moving your services.
Explain EPC.
So EPC, otherwise known as Encompass Partner Connect. So when we, actually even ahead of when we announced the SDK transition, we announced that we are moving away from the legacy LMA network that everybody is familiar with, everybody knows and loves, and moving that over to, again, the modern tech stack, Encompass Partner Connect, that's going to give you all of the abilities to do automated service ordering, do a lot of the load balancing. Oh yeah, and even some of the recent things they've added to that platform are things like for clients who are conditioning files, which is most of them, right? The ability to say, I'm going to go in and I'm going to map that conditions could be coming in from the AUS. Obviously, it could be coming in from a document automation and analysis platform. So like our own data and document automation or other platforms. There's a lot of them that are out there that are doing the same thing. Your QC provider. Any of those types of integrations, they can come in, map those conditions, and get them translated right into the Encompass loan file. So it's giving you a ton of additional capability. And again, it's just streamlining that whole process. It's going to be able to streamline their vendor management, their entitlements, their security, all of those things that go along with it.
It's adopting new technologies is one of those things that, again, as we talked about, is resisted. But once you switch over to it, it's like getting, I'm in the Apple world. I get a new iPhone and it's loaded with new features. But I'm going like, I can't even use all the features on my old phone now. I got a new set of features. So talk about some of the new things that you are seeing come out of this, if you could, with us for our audience, Amy.
Some of the new features when we start talking about transitioning over to the API side. So we'll talk to the nerds in the room. Okay. I'll talk to the nerds in the room for a minute. One of the really cool things that we've actually built out in terms of capabilities on our platform is we have what we call webhooks, right? So our webhooks, at the end of the day, what it is a little. So think about like the notifications on your phone, right? So it's something that something happens, and then you don't have to be in the loan file to know that it happened, right? It's going to send out a signal, and you can have an application on the back end.
Like a notification on your phone. That's a great
It's a lot like that, right? And then it's just instead of your phone, it's going to be a program on your side that you can listen to that and do stuff with it. And so there's a tremendous number of those things. And what's cool about that from a transition perspective, again, this whole idea of transitioning away from the old way of doing an SDK, is it gives you a way to, or we say, move to doing something asynchronously or doing it outside of that user session, but still being able to work with the loan file, get all of that stuff updated. You can even respond to things like, hey, the borrower changed something. So the borrower's come into the portal and they've changed something in the application. Now, you don't have to have somebody going in and looking for those things. You can respond to that, and you have those notifications. So it's really powerful. It's something that really addresses.
I mean,
huge,
talking about adding efficiencies, huge efficiency.
Absolutely.
Rather than jumping in and out of things and getting that notification, being able to, while you're still working in whatever you're working on.
And when you're not, right? If something happens when it's the whole tree falling in the forest, somebody can listen to it, and they don't have to be in the loan file to hear it.
I love that.
So one of those webhooks that I talked about is when it's called the Enhanced Field Change webhook, and we've got all kinds of documentation on that if anybody wants to dig in and get the guts of it. What it does, and what's really cool about it, is it will tell you, hey, David just went in and changed the loan file, he changed the loan amount, he changed the note rate, and by the way, that cascaded down and changed like 50 other things as a result of that. Triggered business rules, it changed your total of payments, it changed all these things on the file. So you will know exactly who did it, when they did it, what they did, and the consequences of what they did. So it's something useful in a huge amount of ways. So obviously from the audit use case that you're talking about, huge, right? The other one, for my developers and testers out there, is a great way to be able to go in and actually test how effective your business rules are. Like, is this thing going to do what I think it's going to do? And so you can go in and actually test that. Right?
Great point.
So you can see it. Yep. Because that's something that people always struggle with, right? Because you can get really complicated and sophisticated with your rules, and sometimes those can be hard to test, or sometimes it's hard to see because you're touching 50 different areas of the loan file, and you may not know the cascading impacts of that. So it's really powerful to be able to see the impact of change and be able to show that, consume that, put it in a data warehouse, do auditing on it. There's a lot of things that you can do with that.
What are some of the additional benefits people are going to start realizing as a result of making this change?
Again, we talk a lot about the long-term, the performance enhancements, some of the efficiencies that they can get from going in and reimagining some of these things, using some of our native tools, which can, again, anytime you are going to reduce the amount of time you're spending in the process, it's going to reduce the cost to originate the loan. So you're going to see a lot of direct benefits, indirect benefits, and we hope seeing some satisfaction benefits from the end users because things are going to work better. Things are going to work faster.
Yeah. it's getting back to the point of speed. Do we see a big efficiency pickup that's going to result in shorter time frames from application to funding? Do you anticipate? I know that's a lot on the lenders' processes too, and the rules that they set up.
Yeah.
But does this give them a path to being able to?
It does. I would say what the vision of this and why we've constructed the tools that we have is aimed exactly at that. Right? We're aimed at giving you what you need to be able to make the most efficient process as much as you can to do things lights out, do things exception based, to again tighten up those time frames. Absolutely, that's the goal. And it's beyond even what we're talking about from the API platform, although that informs pretty much everything we do. But it goes throughout having that whole ecosystem that you've got with ICE.
Very exciting. And you're going to be talking about all of this at your upcoming
Experience. Yes.
Experience
Absolutely.
2025.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about what you're going to be there and talking about this, presenting on it, I'm assuming.
So we're actually going to have 2 different sessions that people can come to join. There's going to be one Sam Lindstrom is going to facilitate. So that's going to be talking more about the native tool options that we're talking about. So migrating over to things like enhanced conditions, workflow engine, things where you're looking at your processes and reimagining that using the configuration-based stuff. Then I'm going to be presenting with some of my industry closest friends, and we're talking about maximizing your efficiency using APIs, I believe is the title of it. But what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the transition, and then I'm also going to be joined by some of our partners from the industry. So Sean from Mace Innovations is going to be presenting and talking about some of the options. And one of our lender partners who has actually done a really cool integration on enhanced field change webhook that I was just talking about is going to talk about that experience. He's going to be increasing his fan club as a result, because whenever he comes and talks, everybody loves him because he's awesome. He's awesome. And really, I think it's going to spark a lot of imagination for, hey, what's possible? And so we're going to be really presenting that and showing some of those examples. And then in addition, because we know people are working on their plans and doing a lot of work in this area, we are holding office hours to allow people to come in and talk to myself. I've got several colleagues from ICE who are going to be on hand, from the engineering side, from professional services, from our support teams, our premier support teams, who are going to be able to sit down, answer your questions, provide some best practices, give some really good guidance in some of the areas if people have questions.
Yeah, it's going to be a great event. It's in March. What is it? Is it March? What's
March
the
10th to 12th.
10th to the 12th, that's right. And so if you're not registered already, I encourage you to do so. And Amy, what's the best way for people that say, hey, I heard your podcast, I want to meet you? What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
What's the best way for them to reach out to me? They can reach out to their account managers if they need to have meetings if they really are interested in having meetings and talking about any of this stuff. Their account managers pretty much all have me on speed dial. But start there.
Good. That's a great way to go about it. Yes. Control the crowd. Amy, thanks so much for being here. I'm disappointed that I can't be at the conference. You guys extended me an opportunity. I'm very happy about it. Unfortunately, got a pretty major life event happening right at the same time. And so I'm not going to be able to be there. And I'm really bummed, especially when I hear about your presentation. I'll be there next year. I'll look forward to that. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you, David.
You've been listening to Lykken on Lending. Our passion is to bring you the latest insights, trends, and updates from the world of mortgages. So on this show, if you're a seasoned industry veteran or just getting started, it's your go-to source for all things mortgage. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We'll be back soon. Take care, and we'll see you next time on Lykken on Lending.